So those of you that are interested in what I'm doing to my bike with this inner primary, the brand new primary that I got turned out to be a little bit different. I'll show you that in a second, but right now I've had this one welded. It's been welded through there and under there. So I'm in the process of cleaning that up, and then I'll give it all a good wash, get all the little bits of debris out of it, so that I've done the inside. The outside's not getting much at all, so I'm going to leave the strength there. But the inside, obviously, I don't want anything to hit on there, so I've just ran the flapper wheel through there, so it's a little bit, it got a little bit of room there so that it never hits anything there. I've got the new seals there ready to go in. One here for the main gearbox input shaft, and down here for the starter motor. Comes in from the other side, but I'll show you the difference between these two inner primaries. So I could have actually made this other primary fit. It can be done, but for the amount of mucking around, I choose not to do it for a couple of different reasons. But you can see here the difference between these two locating bolt holes to here. That big other length that goes around there is not on this one, and this piece here fouls with the bottom shocker. It rubs down there on the bottom shocker, and the actual outer casing with the lip on it on both sides was touching the frame. So, you know, like I said, I could have made it work. I don't want to. I'd rather fix my old one. It's off the bike. I know it'll fit, and it won't cause me any dramas. Also on the back, the locating lugs here on the back, this inner primary off the dyno it hasn't got it. So obviously the casting in this one, they've made it strong enough. This one here, I believe, would be strong enough too. Because the primary job of the inner primary is just to hold the outer primary to hold the oil in there, right? So it doesn't need to be super strong, but when the gearbox and the engine are loose, things like this break. So because they run separately and joined by this primary, when it's all locked up rigid, there's no problem. But when the bolts are loose on the engine or the gearbox, it causes these sorts of things to happen. So this is just an update on the video from the other day as to what I'm doing with it. So I believe that without these lugs on this one, if I had made it fit, it would have been fine. But because I tend to ride these motorbikes, you know, on the level that I ride at, with flicking the clutch and few skids and having a bit of fun, I believe that it could possibly chafe that inner seal just out of the way the clutch and the front, the way it all tries to bend and flex when you get putting it under extreme pressure. So I didn't want to run the chance of not having these locating points and having this area chafe and down the track flog that seal out and make an oil leak, because it runs on here. And then you've got an oil leak, then it gets on the belt, it drips out on the road, it's unsafe for other road users, etc. And it can contaminate the belt, and it ends up all down the side of your bike, etc. So we're not using that. That's going back to Gunner. I was in there yesterday and spoke to him about that. So now this has all been fixed. Thanks to my friend Nathan at the Exhaust Brothers, and obviously excuse me, Scotty Carmody, that owns the show and runs it all. He's been helping me out for many years, and many other people. They're gold, those blokes down there. Real good fellas. So if you need anything done with your exhaust or modifications or engineering or anything, go and see the boys at the Exhaust Brothers. They are the go. So now it's welded. You know the difference between the two primaries, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to bang the new seal in there. New seal in there. She's going back together. Give those holes a quick clean out. It helps the Loctite set better when there's no oil or stuff in there. So when you're putting these bolts back in, it's very important that the threads on the bolts, the shaft and up behind the washer there is all very clean, so that you get the correct torque when you do it up. Sometimes the Loctite on the thread's enough for lubricant, being an oil filled area. Bit of silicone on the back of the head of the bolt in between the washer, the washer with tabs on it. I'll show you that in a sec. And yeah, it's very important that all the threads are very clean. So there's 2 to go there, and these ones here and here, they're all in. The one underneath, they're all in and they're torqued up. I left these to last because it's very important that the motor and gearbox faces are 100% straight, so that when you bolt this inner primary on, there's no flex in it whatsoever. So I've put the feeler gauge in the back. I won't be able to show you where the pins were missing off this one. And I slid, just to give you an example, I've slid a feeler gauge in between here on the one that's on the bike and the framework that it bolts to. And I can't get a 15 thou feeler gauge in it, so it's super close to being perfect. The front married up perfect, the center married up perfect. I went down behind here and done the same thing behind this mounting point, so I know that the motor and gearbox and inner primary have all married up very flush with one another. So there's no tension at all flexing on this inner primary, which also allows the outer primary to marry up to a perfectly flat surface. Once again, this particular gasket that I'm going to use, I have used it once before. So the second time you put them on, you always put them on with silicone. The third time they get replaced, simple as that. So if not every time, if you can afford a $30 gasket every single time the primary comes off, you know, that's fine. But a lot of them you can reuse if there's no damage. But that thread cleanliness is imperative to get the right torque on there. If the thread's dirty, when you torque them up, there's that much grit and grip going on in between the threads that will give you a false reading. Good chance you'll end up with oil leaks. Right, so them little buggers are in and done up, and they're all torqued down. You'll notice there's little tabs on here. Even though they're Loctited in, I've got a little bit of silicone on part of the thread and a little bit of thread in between that lock washer. You can see the tabs. Those tabs, like this one here, you fold them over against the hex of the bolt, and that's double the insurance that nothing can come loose. Not only is there something mechanical and physical that can stop it from coming loose, it's also got the silicone and the Loctite. So it's really good insurance and peace of mind that none of them bolts will come loose and they're all sealed up properly. Yeah, so any job you do, anything mechanically related, must be double and triple checked. You always just take your time, check what you've done, think through the process. If you're not sure, ask. If you need a manual, use a manual. I'm just winging it. I just sort of got a pretty good idea what I'm doing here. I have done a belt before on another Harley, so I have done this process before. But anything mechanically, most mechanics that have been around a while can just work it all out as they go. So yeah, any job you do that involves nuts, bolts, mechanics, wiring, tools, make sure you haven't left any tools in there or whatever. You must double and triple check your work for just to make sure you get it right. So you can see there now those tabs are folded over and there ain't no way that those bolts can come loose. Well, just like the other video, the compensator, clutch assembly and chain and adjuster, they all have to go on as one unit when you're doing the job the way I'm doing it. So the compensator's been done up. There's a spring inside the housing of the compensator. Its design is to give the gear changes a little bit of forgiveness when we smash through the gears. It buys it that little bit of spring-loaded tension instead of being so harsh and direct into the gearbox. So The clutch, that's all done up in there. So the next step is this rod that actually goes right through the main input shaft of the gearbox and goes out to the other side. When you pull the clutch in, the cable that's connected on the other side works on 3-ball bearings and a pivot system, which pushes on this side, which comes right across onto this plate here. You can see the round end on that, which marries up to the shaft that I just put in. So that goes in there, it lines up, the O-ring goes on, and that locks it in, so that when you pull the clutch in, it pulls this whole face out. That's actually the spring there. It's a high tensile bit of steel that's in like a half moon shape. So when you put it on, it's under huge tension, and then when you put your hand on the clutch, it releases all the clutch packs and allows the motor and gearbox to spin independently for burning rubber. So there's another little lock tab on the end of this bolt here that goes right through and into the starter motor over the other side. So the starter motor is in there, it's all done up nice and tight, located perfect. So that little lock tab there, I don't know if the camera's quite picking that up properly, but you see the little tab that's locked over the hex bit of the nut right on the end of that shaft? It's just another bit of insurance that it won't come undone. So the chain's been tensioned, everything's done there. The chain at the top you want very firm, but not that tight that when you do that up, it puts extra tension on there. That is not good. It's actually trying to pull the shafts together. Not good. So it'll stretch the chain, it'll wear things out a lot faster. It's meant to be tight, but not extra tight once you do this up, because it actually you can see in there, see the lines at the back where the big Phillips head screw is. Those lines are married up to other lines on the back of the tensioner, on the back of this bit, to marry up into the lines at the back up here. And they not only line it up, they also stop it from slipping, and that's how it locates once you've done this up, and it keeps the right tension. So yes, there should be next to no play in that, none, so that the timing and the gearbox and everything remains perfect, no give, nothing can break. So sorry, it's not related to the timing, but it is related to you know, keeping everything in sync as one unit. So there it is. The old girl's back together. She's been welded up inside and out. Both faces have been milled. They're both nice and flat. The clutch adjustment's done. That's all back together. Starter motor bits and pieces are back in. I always double and triple check that there's no extra bits laying around, which fortunately at the moment there's not, even though it's a bit of a messy workspace. But I find the brain tees a lot of fun. Just bits and pieces and putting it back together like a jigsaw puzzle when we were little tackers. So now all I've got to do is clean this face here, clean the face of the primary, make sure there's nothing sinister about the primary, dirty, etc. It's been laying on the floor for a few days, so we'll give that a spruce up. A little bit of silicone all the way around there, because like I said earlier, I've used this gasket now. This is the third and last time it will get used. The next time it'll be a brand newie. Hopefully there won't be next time, but the way we ride them, something always gives, and we need to do jobs more than once sometimes because of the amount of fun that we have on these machines. But yeah, the primary's about to go on. Like I said, once that surface is clean, bit of silicone, gasket on. So I put the gasket on there first because it's got a locator, it's got a dowel there and another dowel down the back, under there somewhere it is, and here, and that holds the gasket on. So with the silicone, it'll sit there perfect, and I can slide the outer primary in through there, set it all in there. I'll have all my bolts and everything ready first before I do that procedure, all back together. Then once it's all finished and I've triple checked all my work, the battery will go back on. I always put a torch down inside that hole, and I only put enough oil in it so that it just touches the bottom teeth, because I don't want it drowned in oil and I don't want too much oil getting on the clutch. So what happens is the oil sitting in the bottom of the primary there gets picked up by this tooth here, the pinion, and it flicks it everywhere to the point that it flicks everywhere. It gets all on the chain, and that's all the lubrication is about the chain. Other than that, we wouldn't need an inner or outer primary. It's just to hold the oil and the chain adjustment. So we could certainly rig up another mechanism to hold the chain. This is why we can run open primaries. You would have seen it with the different gears and the belt driven stuff instead of the chain. It can be done, but you know, this system works fine, so I'm just leaving it alone. But yeah, there she is. She'll be on there in probably 5 minutes, and I might even film startup so that you know, I can listen for abnormal noises, blah blah blah. There'll be nothing wrong with it, I know that. I'm super confident there. It's just I'll run it around the block, so long as it doesn't start to rain. It's getting pretty threatening out there. It's actually blown the cover off the front of my Chev, but anyway, shit happens. I'll run it around the block once I've finished and cleaned it all down, and inspect for oil leaks, and we will be ready for Saturday. The gasket's on there. You might be able to just make it out that it's sitting on there. So I've put silicone on both sides of that gasket, and I'm now just putting it all the way around the primary cover face. I mainly concentrate on the bottom of it. Obviously gravity, that's where the oil leaks out, but because it throws around in here so, you know, viciously, if you like, the oil can come out anywhere. But yeah, fully covered the surface this time in silicone or Silastic, the real good stuff that's under pressure. You just pull the trigger. There's no silicone gun here. You just pull the trigger and the silicone comes out there. Yeah, it's good stuff. And all engine builders use this stuff. Well, there she is. That's about what she's meant to look like. All done and finished. The last thing I've got to do is to put that bolt back in the battery, put the seat back on, and start her up, and she's finished. I'm going to give it an hour for the silicones and that to dry, a good hour. So after that, that's when I'll start it, blah, blah, blah. So in the next clip, you know, it's been a good hour or so. I'm going to run it around the block, get her nice and warm, and check for leaks, noises, vibrations, all that sort of stuff. And by then should be a good thing. But it goes to show how easy it is to make mistakes. This one was just an honest mistake. I had put it all back together. I was that focused on doing a near or absolute perfect job with the silicone, etc., and the gaskets, that I actually put it all back together and forgot to put oil in it. Well, it wasn't that big a deal because the silicone was still wet. I just dropped the cover back off, put me 600 ml of oil in it, and you know, she's done. In the next clip, you'll see just how race ready she is for Saturday. She's just been for a bit of a rev tune around the block. There's absolutely no oil under there. And no oil where the crack is. So we've done it. Big thanks to the Exhaust Brothers again. And bloody ripper, she's all finished. Oh shit, fuck, that exhaust is hot. Now we've just got to get the red carpet all vacuumed up, ready for her to go to sleep. Ready for Saturday. Well, there she is. The carpet's all nice and clean. Thanks, Margs. Now, if you listen very, very carefully, you might be able to hear her breathing. Not sure if you can hear it, but I can. You must admit, life is pretty bloody good, eh? Looking forward to Saturday.